experience of eye-opening, mind-expanding, revealing common sense discussion for the common sense citizen. Strap yourself in, put your trays in the upright position, remove dentures and loose jewelry, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and come along for the ride. It is time for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN 830, and our affiliates and streaming on the TuneIn app. It's Joe time, baby.
All right, folks, good morning. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Here we are, the 5th of February, as we are rolling along in 2022. The midterm elections are just, not even 10 months away now as we're cranking along. Good morning. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Boxtrot Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios, online at tjmshow.com. Don't forget, you can listen to WCRN on the TuneIn app. That's right. Just punch in WCRN. Take us anywhere. If you're in the western part of the country, western part of the state, we have our affiliate out there, WACE 730 AM. So plenty of options here. Of course, we're streaming, as we usually do, on my social media platforms for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that is Joe Mangi Show, MANGI, Joe Mangi. So we're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel, The Joe Mangiacotti Show, Twitch TV, Joe M Show, and even my LinkedIn page. So many ways to get a hold of us. We do have our text line also operating at 617-297-8388, or you can email text joe@radio@gmail.com. Appears on the same screen in the studio in real time. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Russ is flying the board this morning. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Driving in, it was 23, 24 degrees. There was some snow and ice, so a little slower. Not ridiculous, but it just slowed it down just a little bit. But the roads are empty. For the most part.
Let the plows and Sanders, do what they have to. Seeing that last night the weather didn't look too promising with ice, and I even saw just a tiny bit of snow on the drive in here this morning.
You mean snowing? Like falling?
It was doing that, and I was surprised. I thought it was just going to be an entire clear shot coming in.
Yeah. Well, I was chatting with a friend who's down that DC Maryland way yesterday, and they said, we got kind of plummeted here, rather. So they were, again, snowed in. So they did what I did last Saturday. I think you did, right? Because we did the replays. Hey, Netflix day, right? Went to the store on Thursday and Friday. Teddy had plenty of treats. I had plenty of beer and wine and whatever I needed, and we just Netflix that Saturday. It was good. It was
definitely a good day to be in your sweatpants, if not necessarily your blue jeans, but if you're not going anywhere, I mean, a nice pair of sweatpants, and again, your snacks, a number of movies, and
it's all
my
good.
Wife and I did pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Coming up at 7 o'clock, State Senator Mike Moore joins us for Politically Speaking, and there'll be a few points that he wants to cover, information that he wants to convey and get out there. And of course, it's your opportunity to call in during Politically Speaking if you have a question for the senator, or maybe you want him to find something out. And he's pretty good about that. A lot of times when somebody asks a question, him or his office will send it to me, during the week or what have you. And I'll say it during a show before the following Politically Speaking, and people will miss it. So he does answer the question. So I want to make sure everybody understands that, and they do answer the question. So this, what say you? I want to get the pulse of what people are thinking about everything from the Freedom Convoy that's happening in Canada, and it's sparking here in the United States. But once again, big tech are squashing it. Right. And everybody, right. What's the response to that? They're private companies and they can do whatever they want. It gets to a point where it's not. They're exercising their opinion, and they're dampering the ability for citizens to speak out and have a voice. And get this, but I've said this over and over again. There comes a point where we have to look at the alphabet companies and, Facebook and Google, who are controlling this. We know that they controlled what we saw and read in the 2020 election. There has been price tags that consultants and political managers have put on the value that candidates have received because of their algorithms and what they can control. Well, it's happening here. When these companies are so big and they become such a common use that they enter the realm of a public utility, as far as I'm concerned, and that means regulation, or it's a Marbell situation or railroad situation, and we got to break it up. Now, President Biden's out talking about the meat industry, right? Inflation's over 7%, out of control, and he's telling us that these bad, evil companies are raising their prices as if they're arbitrarily deciding, I'm not rich enough, I'm going to just raise the prices. It's pedestrian to think this. It's not the case. Prices are going up because everything is going up. Fuel is skyrocketing. Over $90 a barrel closed yesterday. Right? We were, at one point in the Trump administration, oil was so cheap that it was costing them to store the oil. And even the Trump said, no, oil's got to go up. It has to be at, up in the 30s, or at least $40 a barrel for the refineries and for the network, for the infrastructure of the oil industry to survive. Oil has to be, more expensive than it is. It was so cheap. So you've got everything going up. The supply chain issue is causing trouble. They have to do alternative manufacturing or fabrication. All of this stuff is happening, and he wants to, say it's these companies. And yeah, there's a handful, maybe 4 companies control the meat industry, but there wasn't a problem, right? Until the prices started going. Again, those prices are going up because the expenses that they're incurring is being passed along. And he wants to investigate these meat companies because there's too few controlling it. Well, who do you think is controlling all of the public and internet platforms? Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Google search engines. TikTok is a Chinese company. Trump wanted that banned. A texter says, not for long, Facebook stock fell 26%. Yeah. It was something like $232 billion drop in a day or something like that. As a side conversation there, why is that? Well, first of all, I don't think the young people are really using Facebook, right? They've moved on to the Insta, right? I'll check you out on my Insta, and TikTok, and how they used to post things on Facebook and communicate on Facebook. They're doing it on other platforms, and Facebook has become more of an older person's place to go, and businesses, right? Businesses, they make a fortune in the digital marketing. You send an email and ask somebody about, I'm trying to think, what was it that I looked at? I looked up something the other day. I forget what it was. I just Googled something. I think it was even on my phone or whatever. I go on my Facebook feed and there's like 5 ads popping up for what I looked at that I've never seen before. So, they're making a fortune that way, right? So older people, so that's what Facebook is. It's a place older people go. It's I don't know how to liken it to. It's just not the younger people. So yeah, I think that they're dropping there because of that. And then there is or has been, and I think it's still going on, a kind of an exodus for conservatives and even middle of the road people who are just leaving Facebook. They just stop using it because it's just too much censoring after censoring, right? And everything is getting knocked down. So it gets to a point where it just needs to stop. All right. So we need to look at that. We need to look at that. And the meat companies, get the inflation under control. That's what we need to do yesterday. Okay. The other thing, what say you, is the Olympics kicked off. Did you watch it? I didn't watch the Olympics at all. I didn't watch the opening ceremony. I think that this is a cluster waiting to happen there in one way or another, because we've got our athletes going over there. We have an American Chinese born or Chinese descendant. I guess the parents were born in China. She's an American citizen. She's competing for the Chinese, which I think is traitorous, but it's happening. And Nancy Pelosi tells us or says to the athletes, watch yourself, don't say anything, because they're ruthless. And she's telling American citizens to just shut up and say nothing about the atrocities you might see, about the suppression of free speech or freedom you should see. And she's telling this at the podium, and I'm thinking, wow, where have we gone here? And imagining if Donald Trump was still president, I think his messaging would be more along the lines of, speak out. Speak out. Go ahead. Say what you've got to say. But to the Chinese, if you hurt one hair on the head of an American athlete, hell will rain down on you. I think that's more what Trump would be saying, not this Nancy Pelosi stuff, I got to tell you. So what say you? What say you? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's jump to the phones. Mark in Worcester is waiting patiently. Good morning, Mark. You look marvelous.
You look marvelous as well. You were brought up social media, all the various different platforms. What's really going on is that these corporations, private corporations, have morphed into public utilities.
Yep.
They really have.
Yep.
And in many cases, depending on what business you're engaged in, okay, you can't engage on a level playing field with other corporations if you're deplatformed. In other words, you can't really engage in commerce, which is your right as an American citizen. Therefore, since they have morphed into public utilities and they're blatantly engaged in censorship, anybody who goes on the net, if you got half a brain in your head, you can blatantly see that they're engaged in censorship. They should come under the same rules and regulations, federal rules and regulations, or state rules and regulations that govern public utilities. I.e., the Verizon cannot cut off your phone service because they don't like your public or private political stance on anything.
Right. Mark, it would be like Verizon listening to your phone call, and then you say, Biden's lost it. He doesn't have his faculties.
And they cut off your phone
and
service.
all of a sudden your phone call goes dead. Yeah.
Yeah, or your internet connection goes dead.
Yep.
It's exactly the same thing. They're engaging in it. Yep. They're getting away with it.
Very CCP of you, right? That's exactly what China does. Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's the China model, which eventually this country wants to go into. They want to go in. They want the China model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
absolutely.
is which is censorship to the max. Social point merit system. If you say the wrong things at the wrong time on social media, it gets to the point where you can't even get a cab anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, right? Uber is now, excuse me, dry throat for a moment. Uber is removing people that they don't agree with. Airbnb, Michelle Melkin, right? She's been on this show. It's been a while. She is a very smart, articulate woman who's been out there, and she's a very well-known conservative. Well, her husband booked an Airbnb and they connected that that's her husband. So they notify him that they're going to cancel that reservation because they don't want her staying in any Airbnb because they don't like her. And then he goes notified, Mark, that his Airbnb account has been deleted because she often travels with him in America. This is happening.
So his ability to engage in lawful and legal commerce within the United States has been deplatformed by these, what they really are public utilities, which is blatantly absurd. It should be made illegal, and the Congress and the Senate of the United States should address this immediately.
Absolutely.
All right, have a good one, brother.
Thank you, Mark,
Bye-bye.
very much. And Mark hit it on the head. It's exactly what I've been saying, folks. These people, these companies, and the services they provide are equivalent to public utilities, and therefore they need to be regulated. And once they're regulated, then all of the guarantees of our freedoms and Bill of Rights kick into this. But I even go a step further and maintain that these companies are working in conjunction with or under the shadow of the government. And anything under the shadow of the government is as if the government is doing it. Now, my analogy for me is if you look at government law enforcement and evidence and so forth, in an industry I'm very familiar with, I own a private detective agency. As private investigators, if we gather evidence of a crime during our investigation and we notify the police of this and turn that evidence over, it's absolutely admissible. It's a reliable source. It's enough for the police to go to a judge and say, a reliable source. They can name it. They can name the PI, in the course of their investigation where this private person or company engaged their services directly. They came across this evidence or this information that becomes evidence, and the court will use it. But if that private investigator at any time works with the police or even investigating that case with the knowledge of the police, right? Maybe it was a loss from a corporation and the police have been called and the investigator speaks to the responding officer or the detective in charge of it, and they continue to do it. Well, right there's been a connection. In this case, the police of the state. So now anything that investigator might turn up is going to be subjected to the same rules of a police officer, meaning that if that information that the private investigator came across and did it without a search warrant or without permission, say, to look through this or be there, it's tainted. It can be thrown out, right? It's the fruit of the tree. And everything connected to what came after that can be thrown out. Well, I liken this to the same thing. Once the government has consulted with these companies or given them direction on banning things, or they, as Jen Psaki has admitted, they meet with them on a weekly basis in the White House as to, what is information. They're working with the government. It's under the color of law. And our First Amendment rights should be triggered at this point. But that's my opinion. That's my coming from it. That's my point of view. That's for legal scholars to run against it. But we've got certain legislators out there right now who have been saying, as long as I have been saying, that Section 230 has got to be rescinded. And they threw that Section 230 in the 90s when the internet was in its infancy. And we really didn't know what it was. And they said, well, we got to put these protections that you can't sue these companies as they're figuring things out and getting up and going. Well, now they've become the richest, most powerful corporations on the planet. They don't need that protection. And they also need to make the decision as to whether they are or are not what they are. Meaning, are you a publication or are you a platform? If you're a platform, than everybody's point of view, and anybody should be able to ask questions. And then that's what they're defunding or deplatforming people on, is asking the questions. Well, if John Hopkins says that masks really don't work unless it's the specific surgical mask, why are we required to wear them? Not a question. That's not hate speech. That's not anything. That's a question, right? Look at the Joe Rogan, what he's going through. Here's a guy who does this podcast. I mean, it's like 3 hours, and he just has conversations and asks questions. And I think the mainstream media, they're more pissed about the fact that he has, 11 million viewers on average with spikes. And CNN can barely break 700,000 people. You think that might be the problem with CNN, the alphabets, right? CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, all of them, they're coming after Rogan. And the questions he's asking are the questions I think we all are asking. Yet you have CNN putting out such false information, and they're so pissed that people listening to Rogan, right? You got the potato guy there, Stelzer, the little bald guy, right? Who's always saying he's reliable resources, reliable sources, I think is the name of it. I don't watch CNN much. And he's saying we have these departments and they're trusting Joe Rogan more than they're trusting us. Yeah, you bet you are. And they don't understand how Fox News is killing them, because Fox News is actually telling you about things that are happening. How long has, outlets like Fox been saying, look at even back when the riots were going on, you literally have CNN correspondent standing there with fire and riots happening behind him in the background and saying, mostly peaceful protests here. How stupid do they think the American consumer is? And Fox has been talking about the crimes and the murders and the uptick for the last several years. And they're making fun of Fox. And they pretend, Jen Psaki, saying it's an alternative universe. No, Jen, you know what? You're in the alternative, like Judge Jeanine Pirro said, you're in the alternative universe, the bubble. Here's a woman that goes to work in the White House, the most protected building in the United States, with an army of armed federal agents trained, dogs, 9-foot walls, snipers and sharpshooters on the roof, metal detectors, bulletproof glass, anti-aircraft weaponry on the roof, and a bunker. So I would think, yeah, she feels safe going to work. But what about the people who have to take the subway when people are randomly pushed off the platform in front of an oncoming train or stabbed to death? Right, Brianna, in LA, high-end furniture store, you think should be safe. A very disturbed man who shouldn't have been on the street in the first place. Walks in, slashes her 24 times, kills her at work. And she says Fox is an alternative universe. Are you kidding me, Jen? New York crime rates, overall crime is up 38%. Shooting incidents, right? And this is so far in 2022 versus 21. Shooting up 32.4%. Now, transit crime's up 70%. So one would say, I think it's kind of dangerous to take public transportation in New York right now. We have had people pushed in front of trains there, pushed downstairs, punched in the head, stabbed. Good percentage of them Asians for some reason. And what they call grand larceny in New York, it's auto, car theft, up 92.5%. Car thefts and carjackings are happening, and they're trying to tell us that's an alternative universe, that crime's not that bad and it's not the issue. Joe Biden goes to New York the other day and he doesn't talk about the crime. He talks about just the guns. Misses the boat. 100%. Does it again. Misses the boat. And then we've got this convoy that wanted to take place, the Freedom Convoy in the United States. Facebook shut their page down and then eliminated the two guys who were starting it. Their personal Facebook pages, delete them. They don't have them. And they had nothing on their personal pages about this. That's the power that they have and that they're exercising. We have to take a break here at the bottom of the hour in the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000, and our text line is 617-297-8388. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us. Back in a moment. Good morning and welcome to Case Files from the LPDAM, where we take a look at the lessons from actual cases, the law behind the findings, and where we share the experiences of the experts of the Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts. Joining us this week is Sean Burke, who is the current president of LPDAM and director of the Social Justice Advocacy Project and author of industry books. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Joe.
Hey, welcome back to Case Files. And I just thought I would ask the real simple question, kind of a refresher. We've been doing this a little while. But who are private investigators and where do they come from?
Joe, private investigators are people just like everyone else, except for they have special training and experience in the investigative field. A Massachusetts PI is held to the highest standard of any licensee in the Commonwealth. This is why the state police is the licensing agency rather than the Secretary of State or a municipality.
Wow, the state police. They must do an extensive background check on someone to get a PI license.
They do, Joe.
PI.
The state police background investigation of every PI applicant includes a criminal, financial, and personal background check. It's pretty extensive and not an easy background investigation to pass. This is completed on a yearly basis, and there is no guarantee of being renewed. So a private investigator has to make sure they are professionally ethical as well as a good citizen on a personal level. If you hold a Massachusetts PI license, I am confident to say that you are a good, upstanding citizen. Joe, in addition to the required background check, to be a licensed private investigator, you must have either worked for a licensed private investigator business for at least 3 years or hold the rank of a sergeant with the police department. It is probably one of the hottest licenses to obtain in Massachusetts because of this. At LPDM, we narrow the criteria even more to help the public locate a PI who offers specific services for a client's needs. These professionals can do it and get it done right. Remember, Joe, you're in good hands with LPDM.
You certainly are, Sean. Hey, thanks for stopping by Case Files again.
Thank you, Joe.
And thank you for joining us for Case Files from the LPDAM. Join us here each week on WCRN 830 AM and online anytime at lpdamcasefiles.com. Visit the site at lpdam.org. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at PI in Mass. And of course, call anytime 800-955-6274. For Sean Burke, I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This find of her home for Teddy's Friends brought to you by Boxdrop Middlesex Mattress Outlet. Today's candidate is Moto. He's a 4-year-old male terrier American pit bull mix, tan and white, and is very much house trained. Moto is an intelligent boy who knows what he likes. Some of his favorite things are strolling leash walks and quiet nights at home. This lovely boy is sweet and laid back and shy side with plenty of good manners and expects the same from both human and dog alike. For Moto, this means taking the time to get to know him. Moto is a gentleman who prefers to exchange pleasantries and go for a walk rather than to chest pump the high five type greeting that more outgoing individuals prefer. He is past that puppy stage and in the prime of his life. Moto is looking forward to living as the only dog in a quiet adult home. Moto's motto is relax and take it easy. If you share the same philosophy, Moto might like to meet you. For more on Moto, click Teddy Goodpup's Facebook page. Pictures and links to the Worcester Animal Rescue League. Find of Her Home is brought to you by Boxdrop Middlesex Mattress Outlet. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or Facebook at Boxdrop Middlesex.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. Call 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
This is Sean Burke, president of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense. You need a license to perform investigations in Massachusetts. What are some types of work that requires a license? Any type of surveillance, interviewing someone for a third party, background and asset checks are just a few examples. For more on this, visit us at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Boxer Up Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation anytime at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And so, like I said, this truck convoy, the Freedom Convoy taking place in Canada, and it, right, their prime minister, right, blackface guy himself, Justin Trudeau, he's calling them hate speech, and he went into hiding, and it's so ridiculous that they throw these labels out on anybody that disagrees with them or has a counter point of view, right? They have to make them evil and hate people and racist and bigoted, because if they are, they can justify any of the things they do to them. And this truck movement that was headed to the United States, the guys who wanted to put it together, Facebook takes the page down, and then they go after their personal pages. And they got the GoFundMe organization, and this is the rich part of this. This is really the hypocrisy here, right? They go the GoFundMe, they reach $10 million Canadian money. That's about $7,800,000, almost $900,000 American dollars in donations. And they freeze the page, and they want to ask questions like, what's the money going to be used for, and how is it going to be distributed? Because you know what? They know what these horrible, mean truckers were doing? They were feeding the homeless. They were feeding the homeless and shoveling places out. Those mean, nasty truck drivers. So what happens if it comes here? And what is going to be the response from Washington about it? And what happens when the weather gets a little better, and right behind the 40 miles and growing of truck drivers and trucks, you've got motorcycles. They've already done it, right? We've seen those come in. What happens when the motorcycles and the truckers decide to step up over these mandates? When we just, right, new study from Johns Hopkins University shows that shutting down the country reduced COVID mortality by 0.2% while causing devastating effects on the economy and drastic social ills. And it went on to say that lockdowns are ill-founded and should be rejected as a pandemic policy instrument. And don't even get in to what it's done to our students and our kids. Little kids who are at that point in their development that they need to see faces. Seniors and juniors who have lost those very important years of senior year and proms and so forth, to the falling behind in academically in school to suicide, attempted and successful, domestic abuse, child abuse, malnutrition, alcoholism, drug addiction, all uprise because of these mandates and these lockdowns and remote learning. It's all a mess, and has been, as Trump said, these solutions, these attempts to address it are worse than the ill itself. And we've done it. We've ruined. I mean, now they oh, jobs are coming. Why do you think the jobs report was so good yesterday? Because people are going back to work. They, the citizens' assessment of the situation is better than the government's. Well, they're so apprehensive about giving up any control. I don't know. Is he afraid to do July 4th again? Hey, go to your barbecues, do all this, and then the Omicron hit? I don't know. But I think collectively we've had it. We saw the parents revolt in Virginia. Now we see the students. The students are gathering now and saying, we're not wearing masks. Enough. Want to suspend us? We'll go home. But enough is enough. They're being polite. It's civil disobedience. And they're doing it the right way. And I don't think the Democratic Party are reading the tea leaves the way they should. Right? They're very reactive to polls and so forth, but they just don't get it. They're so insulated in the world that they're not understanding it. And it's going to take the parents, which I think they've woken the sleeping giant with that, and now the students are. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Shop Middlesex Mattress Studios. Let me go to Ken in Bolton was on the line first. Good morning, Ken. You wanted to talk about censorship.
Yeah,
sorry.
Good morning, Joe.
You're not allowed to. Thanks for the call, Ken. It was nice to talk to you.
And hello again, Patriots. What another great week. Oh, isn't it wonderful what's happening to CNN?
Oh, my goodness. That's an implosion of epic proportion, right? And I'm curious, this guy, the resignation, right? He destroyed NBC, right? He destroyed programs. He ends up there with apparently Donald Trump is responsible for getting the job at CNN. And then he resigns. He resigned very quickly. And I'm wondering, is he trying to resign and stop any further questions? Is there something bigger going on there? Because when you think about it, wouldn't you normally weather that too?
Oh, no. Did you get the story, Joe? This 25-year romance. Literally, his mistress is living above his apartment.
Yeah, I know. They had the apartments and so forth.
God.
But that has nothing to do with his work. The issue that they have at the work is they didn't expose it to HR. And
but can you imagine the environment? I mean, the left had complained 30 years ago about sexual harassment. This isn't a blatant violation of the corporate policy. And they let it go for so many years.
Yeah, it was the best kept secret, right? I mean, everybody knew it. And now I guess within CNN, people want Stelzer to go because I think he was probably the pet, right? Doesn't he strike you as that Weasley kind of guy that was the pet?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody had to deal with him, put up with his stupid jokes and his stinky tuna fish sandwich and stuff because, he had the air of the boss type of thing. Now they seem to be calling for his head too and saying, he and this is a guy whose show is totally based on reliable sources of inside the media world. Right? He spends more time trying to go after Fox than what's going on there. Now these I guess they're I don't know if you caught this, but Cuomo's lawyer has a preservation order on the texts between the mistress and him. So so the lawyer wants all the texts preserved because apparently they think there's some damage. Obviously, they think there's damaging texts in there.
And did you get the connections with Andrew too? They basically were in cahoots.
Of course, yeah.
Running
Absolutely.
the state of New York.
And that's probably why they want the preservation order there is to show what was going on. I mean, you could see it clearly. You had, first of all, little brother, right, Fredo, who's doing all this consulting and in Oppo research, right? He's trying to dig up dirt on the women that his brother assaulted. I mean, this is just, it's such a mess over there. And then on top of all this, the guy should have been fired because the ratings. I mean, they're 70, in some instances, 90% down. I mean, that alone.
No, yeah, 90%.
That alone is, you should be fired. This is a business after all, folks. And, now you got Tucker Carlson, right? #1 cable program across the board, right? You've got the 5 tying Rachel Maddow for Democrats. I'm not talking about the 5 is killing it in ratings, period, right? But on the very sought after, that 24 to 35 demographic of self-identified Democrats are now watching Fox. So it's crazy.
An example of all the stories that you have today, Joe, are okay. Let's patronize the companies who share our values and dump the ones who don't. So you started talking about last weekend that it's a Netflix weekend. Why are you watching Netflix? Pureflix, check it out. Seriously,
I think actually, to tell you the truth, I think when I say Netflix, it's kind of it's like saying Xerox.
I know,
something.
That's what most people watch.
Right, but I'm actually watching a bunch of other streaming services that are out there, Tubi and stuff like that. When I say Netflix, it's a generic meaning movie day. But then again, you don't have a lot of. I mean, what are you gonna? I have Fire Sticks, right? So I have Amazon TV automatically. I won't get Apple. But I do have Netflix. I do have Amazon. I do have Hulu. I think I got Paramount maybe or something like that. And then, you got Tubi and all this other stuff. But, I mean, you got to watch something somewhere. But the problem on that, Ken, is the fact that every time, and they say this thing about the private industry, but when the private industries coordinated to stop or deplatform other competitors, right? Because you had Parler, right? Look what they did to Parler, and Amazon came in and pulled the servers, and so that's orchestrated conspiracy there, right? That shouldn't be allowed either.
Right. When they clearly break the law, you punish them. But if they're not sharing your values, look somewhere else. See, we had this mindset for most of our lifetimes that, we're Republicans and we're pro-business and the businesses are on our side. Not anymore. It's a whole different paradigm now.
Yeah.
We have to recognize it. At the beginning of this hour, a half hour, I should say, you talked about GoFundMe. Are you familiar with alternatives? Because GoFundMe is corrupt. They're not on our side. You should follow Give, Send, Go. In so many ways, we are going to crush the left. Because if we just act, stop complaining, act, and we will win.
Well, here's the problem with a lot of. I just lost my train of thought. The problem with the alternatives is that's what I was thinking. Is it's a shame that this is what has happened, and it's only a new thing in the last several years that your politics and opinions are tied to commerce. In other words, growing up, you had no idea, nor did the company seem to care what your political affiliation was when you ordered telephone service or went into the butcher or bought a movie from Blockbuster or what. Like, nobody cared. Now, all of a sudden, right, you have these, basically you got to have these tests. Right. And like I said, this with Michelle Malkin and the Airbnb blows my mind away.
That's reality though, Joe.
Exactly. And I deleted the Airbnb from my app. There are other things out there. It's a shame that is, because commerce should be based on what do you give for how much? Do I have a value? Is your service good? Is your product good? Now, I think that I've always looked at, is it made? Where was it made? Now, do I have stuff around my house made in China? Absolutely. When I grab an orange squeezer thing off the counter while I'm at the store, am I looking to see if it's made in China? No, I'm not.
Good.
But
no, we have to. At least this isn't going to last forever, Joe. This is a period that we're going through that hopefully within 2 to 5 years, the messages will be sent. So when you see enough companies go through Zuckerberg's pain this week,
yeah,
we cheer, and everybody starts getting the message. And then suddenly, like the far leftists who instill their thoughts, their political thoughts into their business are going to get punished. That's what they need to be. We thought, Republicans, they're for business. Not this time. It depends what sort of business you're doing.
Look,
if you're
I still
mixing
maintain
politics
that
with
it's
business, you're going to pay a price.
it's still, and that's fine, and people can do that. I just think that I'd like to go back to the days where companies just ran their business and they weren't getting political, just like artists.
Agreed.
I like the days when artists used to perform. You bought their music because you liked it. You went to the show because you enjoyed it. You went to the comedian because they were funny. And they pushed the envelope and talked about things that weren't acceptable. Now everything has consequences, and some other person's opinion or values has to be imposed onto you, and it's going to control your options. I don't think that's a great way to have it. It's sad that we've come there.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
Ken,
But
I got to hold you there because I got full line, so I got to let you go there. Did you have, or are you going to do Shame and Fame tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Tomorrow. All right, Ken, thanks for the call. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, folks. Lines are open and available. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Boxtrot Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Politically speaking, at the top of the hour, State Senator Mike Moore will join us. Let's go to Bruce in Northbridge, who's been waiting patiently. Good morning, Bruce. You want to talk about DNC? Yes, how are you, sir?
Well, the DNC is actually running the country. DNC decided long time ago the only way to win is to cheat. So they started out cheating by not even pretending that their outlets of the media were non-political. So they started off with that. And they got involved with schooling. So now we got the DNC controlling the schools and the media. And then they decide to start colluding with the Chinese to perform some germicide warfare. So they created a pandemic all by themselves.
Well, but wait a minute. I don't know if I would say that the pandemic or that you talk about the Wuhan virus. I don't know if that's a democratic thing. I think that's a Chinese thing. I think it's sad that the American tax dollars were being funded or funneled into the Wuhan lab, and NIH was funding, first of all, these bizarre animal experiments. I don't know if you've been catching this, what they're doing there, and then funding this gain of research, which was absolutely a forbidden thing to do. And we were told, and we were supposedly understood it wasn't happening, but through the funneling of money through other organizations, it was funding gain of research at the Wuhan lab. Then there's a leak in the lab, and it travels the planet, and it changes us forever. Because this virus, folks, it's on the planet. It exists now, right? There's no putting this genie back in the bottle. And just like the flu is out there, and there are strains of flu every year, right? Prior to the last couple of years, prior to coronavirus on the planet, right? What did we do every year? Oh, it's flu season. Oh, this strain is strong this year. This strain isn't so strong. Oh, you got to get your flu shot for this year's strain. And we didn't really think about it, right? And we didn't shut down schools. We didn't change how we lived. We just said, oh, get your flu shot. When you get the flu, take care of it, stay home, drink some fluids, yada, yada. We're at the point now in the Omicron variant has showed us that this has weakened to the point that now you get it, you have the sniffles for a few days, but it's very contagious. And this was nature's way of vaccinating the planet, right? The Omicron whipped through the entire world and is still whipping through the world. And everybody will get it at some point, and you will have the sniffles, you'll get it, your antibodies will be in there. Now, we're learning from John Hopkins and everything else, hey, the masks don't do anything. I mean, unless you have that high-grade surgical mask, it's not really doing anything.
And
And
they're made in China, by the way.
yeah, of course they are. And you know, and this goes back to long before the Build Back Better or anything. Donald Trump was talking about the supply chain and where we get our stuff, 6 years ago, and saying this is ridiculous. Before he ran for president, he was saying this is our problem. And what the virus did, Bruce, it accentuated it. It put it out there and put a spotlight on the fact that not only things are right but the components of things that we need, medicine and machinery and chips, right? One of the big problems with the car inventory right now is you've got things like computer chips that aren't made here, so they can't complete finishing building the car, even though they might put the car together in the United States. So many of the components are coming from foreign entities. So this is a problem across the board.
Then we go on to go state by state and try to change voting laws one state at a time without the proper channels of a written constitution that's been around for 200 years.
Yeah.
So then we have an election that is not an election, it's a stolen election. And everybody's okay with that because we don't have the technology to perform this, outside of the fact that we have the technology to put a whole computer in your palm of your hand. But the American election was not fixed because people can't see it. Okay? And then when you do see it, you consider it out of your mind.
All right.
Well,
I get it. Yep.
I guess we're out of our mind. Have a great day, guys.
All right, Bruce. Thank you very much. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And our text line is still up and running if you wanted to get a text in there. There was the, what was it, something about the Bezos. I want to bring this up because somebody texted in Amazon up 16.6% to pay for Bezos' $500 million yacht. And somewhere, I think it's a Danish bridge or somewhere I caught an article about, they have to dismantle this historic bridge for Bezos' yacht to be able to get into port. And I saw the picture because he has a couple of them, but this one they're talking about, it's a sail yacht, 114 feet, I think, but it's quite something. I don't know. Hey, $500 million for a yacht, but the guy's one of the richest guys on the planet, folks. What can you say? Coming up at 7 o'clock, after the 7 o'clock break, politically speaking, with State Senator Mike Moore will be in. We can talk about, well, he'll have some information he wants to share, but you'll have opportunity to call in and ask him some questions. I think the state legislature just actually had a vote on something to do with voting in Massachusetts. Let's see what that's all about. Again, the convoy situation. Hey, what's happening there? Is it going to come? You've got Facebook shutting them down, coming from the Hill. Just like that, truck drivers went from being essential workers, highly lauded and risking their personal health to deliver goods to lockdown communities, right? Remember this. Well, we were all staying home from work and in the homes, right? You did go to the grocery store. You've got the kids stocking the shelves, and you got cashiers cashing you out, and you got trucks showing up at the back of the store to replenish. Yeah, the shelves were empty from time to time because people panicked, right? And they bought all the toilet paper and milk or what have you, but the trucks kept bringing it in, right? Bringing it back in. So now they're officially classified as non-essential functionaries. Just like that, right? But the truckers have become a rallying point for millions who are irate about what many view as COVID-inspired overreach by autocratic governments. Thousands turned out to cheer the miles-long convoy. This is over 40 miles. I think it's broken any records that existed for convoys, and it's growing. right? People are joining them along the way and bringing food to them and all this. Even though the government in Nova Scotia literally making the protesters' case outlawed people from lining the streets and imposed stiff fines on those who disobeyed. Now, we didn't see any kind of actions like this when Antifa was burning buildings and murdering police officers, right? And a matter of fact, that was all happening in the height of the pandemic. And for some reason, those rallies were exempt from being classified as super spreaders. I don't know. It's funny how the rule changes depending on who's doing it and what your political view is on that. All right, that's going to wrap up this Saturday edition, because now, coming into hour 2, we go to Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore, who will join us in studio. You'll have your chance to call and ask questions at 508-871-7000. And back after the break, we'll be back with Politically Speaking. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. And, of course, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., folks. Back in a moment.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock. Hey, folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8. A wedding is a beautiful ceremony that honors the joining of two human hearts, and it is the most important day of your life. And if you'd like your wedding to be as memorable experience and a genuine reflection of who you are, and one that your family and your guests will carry with them for the rest of their lives, I'd offer you to consider a Justice of the Peace. Justice Missy Margolis has been performing her duties for over 20 years for the shared joy and pleasure of bringing other people happiness. Missy officiated my wedding ceremony. She will work with you myself on handling change.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month, knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Boxdrop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Boxdrop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
All right, folks, welcome to Politically Speaking, the first Saturday of every month. State Senator Mike Moore joins us in studio for Politically Speaking, where he brings what's happening and what's rocking up on Beacon Hill. Hey, Senator Moore, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
It seems like you have a long life, like Teddy hadn't seen you in years, for crying out loud. He's all over you this morning.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening at Teddy's home that he's so excited.
I know, right? He's so neglected that he has to go out there and get attention. I don't know. He was just waiting for his birthday gift. I'm sure that's all it is. Yeah.
It's going to, if you wait one more month.
You have to wait one more month.
Bring him a snack or something.
A snack, yeah. It's got to be the right one, though. He's very picky about that.
Oh, it's a sensitive palate.
Yeah, I don't know where he gets that from. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. The text line is still up and running for Politically Speaking, 617-297-8388. If you want to text a question or comment in for the senator, that's fine. You can still use the same email, textjoe on the radio at gmail.com, appears on the same screen in real time here in studio. Where do you want to go? What is it that you need to get out to listeners, first of all, because we always want to know what's going on with the budget and the money and where's it going and who's getting it.
Just going to say, so what we have right now, the governor just released his budget, which will be the last one from the Baker-Polito administration.
Yeah.
So the governor's budget he released was a $48.5 billion budget. It includes proposals that will provide $700 million in tax relief to low-income families and residents, and to maintain Massachusetts competitiveness. The unrestricted government aid. This is the aid that we send back to cities and towns.
Yeah.
Non-school. So the governor provided $31.5 million for that.
Now, does any of that come from the lottery? Is that a whole separate line?
The lottery comes. It's a whole separate line.
Okay.
The expected revenue growth for this next fiscal year, which again starts July 1st. The expected revenue growth is 2.7% increase. The unrestricted government aid for the cities and towns is $1.2 billion. Then we have $6 million in funding that he put in for what they call the Community Compact related program. And this is a program that they work with the cities and towns when cities and towns were trying to improve efficiency, whether it's change the technology or regionalization type of efforts. So they appropriated $2.4 million for that, $4.8 million for public safety grants, another $3 million for district local aid technical assistance. And then we have the Student Opportunity Act, which is what we increased the funding for when we did the foundation budget review, and we increased the foundation budget for the cities and towns for the schools. There was a $591.4 million in new spending, $485 million in Chapter 70. That's actually the school funding that we provide the cities and towns, and then $41 million increase in special education circuit breaker. Then there's some other funding priorities here that they
Now there's a line on there for charter school reimbursement.
Yes.
So that's the money allocated for parents who want to send their kids to a charter school. The money follows them, or some money follows them. Is that how
Yes.
that works?
The city or town
Yeah.
that the charter school is in, or where they're losing the student, they will the first year get 100% of the funding for that student. Then it's 75%. Then it's 50%. So over the 4 years, the student is going to that charter school.
No, why does that decrease rather over like why not if the child? So they put a price tag on each child had, right? So I mean, when you take the school budget, say there are I don't know, a town with 2,000 students. Here's their budget, so it's costing X number of dollars per student to educate them. Now, if that student goes from the public school to the charter school,
which is charter school is a public school also.
Is also a public
It's based
school.
on public school.
So they're just redirecting that money to that school.
Correct.
Now, why doesn't the cost of that stay there the whole time? Why would they decrease that each year?
To bring some of the funding back to the traditional K through 12 school. The goal is not to have every student go into a charter school. Well, I shouldn't say the goal. This is just
So they're punishing them for going to the charter school by money, monetarily punishing them. They take the money away every year to coerce you to go back to public school.
I don't know if I'd call it punishment. I guess if you want to use the word punishment. But
Well,
it's not punishment.
I mean, if the parent decides that my child's going to go to this charter school, why not stay there the 4 years? I mean,
well, the parent. There was also changes in the way charter schools operate. They have to do it by lottery. So, well, actually, they've always had to do it by lottery.
Okay.
So they got to do it by lottery. So you can have your student, your son or daughter, who wants to go to the charter school. A lot of these students don't get into the charter school in the first place because it's by lottery. And we actually had to change some of the.
But a lot of people want to get into them, right?
Yeah, there's a significant amount.
So if it's all funded from the same money and they are public schools, why don't all the schools follow the charter school? In other words, why not make all the schools why are they so interested in the charter school?
Because there's a different curriculum, and there used to be different standards. There were standards that the state public school, the city and town public schools used to have to follow.
Okay.
As far as special education for students, the disciplinary code,
sure.
The general, there's more of academic freedom, I guess, for the teachers to use.
Yeah.
Now, what I have been told from legislators who have been there when charter schools first came into place, the concept of charter schools were to explore new ways of teaching.
Okay.
And then those methods were to be brought over to the public school, and the public school could evaluate those and try to implement them if they see it's being successful. But we've never really had the transition of teaching. Taking a picture. I'm like, we never really had the transition of teaching methods from the charter school to the public schools. And
exactly. Yeah, we need more pictures for the library.
Yeah, that's why.
Did I send you off a little bit off key there for a second? Sorry. Plus, Teddy looks good there in front of you. All right. So the thing about the charter. So when parents pull their children to go to a private school, no tax money follows them.
No,
none. All right.
No.
Can parents get a rebate if the children aren't taking part in the school system, since a good portion of your taxes are for the school?
No, there's no rebate. There's no rebate for choosing to send your child to a private school.
Yeah. Has anybody ever suggested that happen?
I can't tell you, Joe.
I'm sure there's some parents who talk about sit around the kitchen table and say,
"Hey,
like my kids, I think the money should follow my kids." All right, folks.
But you got to remember too is the Commonwealth has an obligation that we have to provide public education.
Absolutely.
So, if you have the financial means to send your son or daughter to a private school, no one's attacking that. You've got that financial means. That's great. Send your son or daughter to wherever they want to go. But there is a basic need for funding for the public education.
Absolutely. And that can I have a friend of mine, 4 kids, all in private school. I mean that bill, right? Because he's schools at 30, 40,000. I mean, it's like going to college.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And it's ridiculous. He works like a dog because he's sending his kids to private schools, but that's his choice. That's his choice.
We also did a COVID-19 supplemental funding bill. So there were issues that we tried to address that we may have fallen through the cracks previously. So we unveiled a $55 million package. Actually, the House did. Then when it was bumped up by the Senate to $76 million, then it went to conference committee. The conference committee is the House passes the version, the Senate passes the version. There's differences. So that piece of legislation goes to a conference committee and they bargain out differences. So the final bill that went to the governor was $101 million. And this legislation earmarks $50 million to establish COVID-19 testing at community health centers, regional vaccination centers, urgent care centers, and other testing sites. There's also additional funding to purchase rapid COVID-19 antigen tests, which we've made available to elementary and public schools, to charter schools, to educational collaboratives, early education programs, congregate care facilities, early intervention programs, and homeless shelters. The bill also includes $5 million to increase the youth vaccination rates, while also setting aside $5 million to expand infrastructure and staff at the community health centers that deliver the vaccines. The legislation also increases the COVID-19 emergency sick leave bank program by $25 million. We established last May $75 million program funding for this program with up to 1 week paid sick leave, and the person's salary is capped at $850. There goes my mic.
Yeah.
Then there was another $1 million to earmark to the Department of Unemployment, and that was basically the highlights of that.
Okay.
And then we let's see.
You're listening to Politically Speaking.
So those are the two things that we had passed. Now that we had done. We haven't passed the budget yet. So the budget, what that does now is they released it. The House is going to do their budget.
Mm-hmm.
They'll look at the governor's budget. They'll evaluate it, see which policy directions they want to support, not support, or funding levels. Then the House will release the budget. They usually release it, I think, in March or April, and then in May, the Senate will do our budget, and we look at the House and the House and the governor's budget, and we make our recommendations. And hopefully, then after we do it the last week of May, before Memorial Day, it goes to a conference committee, and hopefully the budget will go to the governor's desk before June 30th, and then he has 10 days to sign it.
Yeah, okay, and if he doesn't sign it, it goes back.
Well, I don't think the governor's never signed the budget.
He's never signed a budget.
They will,
because by the time it gets to him, it's been hashed over a million times here, right? He knows what's in it.
He knows what. But there are things that come out of conference committee that they may not be familiar with, or they may not support. So every budget that goes to his desk, and this is not just Governor Baker, goes to every governor that's been in there. Massachusetts has what's called the line item veto, so they can actually go in and make specific cuts or veto specific programs. So normally what happens is the governor usually will do that, and then the legislature, because just as you're saying, from the House to the Senate, that budget's been vetted, it's been researched. Most of the time, 90% of the gubernatorial vetoes are overridden.
Yeah.
And that's not just Governor Baker. That goes back to other governors also.
When I first started in this business, doing news radio, right? You know what budgets were? Massachusetts. I think the first time in news I was there, it was like 16.8 billion or something like that. Right. Yeah. It's like gone up a billion plus like every year I've been in this business. Right. It's now we're pushing $50 billion for a state budget. And it was in the mid-teens when I started in radio 30 something years ago. It's crazy. Yeah. All right, folks, 508-871-7000. Join the conversation. This is Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. The first Saturday of every month, the senator joins us in studio to convey what's happening on Beacon Hill and give you an opportunity to call in 508-871-7000. Let's go to Mark in Worcester, who's been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, you're on with State Senator Mike Moore and myself.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
From the last time I talked with you, I asked you about illegal alien foreign nationals who, for whatever reason, have decided to drop anchor in Massachusetts for reasons only known to themselves. If any of them are receiving any public assistance from any Mass state agencies, have you been able to determine that?
If any, I can't.
Illegal alien
listen, let me-
foreign nationals who have taken up residence
I
for
cannot
whatever
tell.
reasons.
I cannot tell, Mark. I cannot tell you whether there is anyone that's receiving it. The only assistance anyone's supposed to be getting would be emergency medical care if they're an undocumented or illegal immigrant. Everyone's entitled to emergency care. Other than that, there is no state public assistance that is supposed to be going to illegal immigrants.
So the thing on this, and let's clarify this because it comes up. So you're saying that the thing is the state has not said, okay, we're going to put aside money or allow money that's in these programs to go to undocumented illegal aliens. However, if the illegals have borrowed, rented, stolen an ID,
then that's fraud.
Then that's fraud on their part,
right?
And they're doing that.
And obviously that I can't tell you how many. Look, I'm sure there are some cases,
yeah,
but I can't tell you to the degree that we're having that issue.
Right. And you know what is in place to stop that fraud? Right. I know the BSI used to be in charge, right? They did a lot of the
BSI
departments, and yet they cut the BSIs. That always struck me as strange.
Yeah, we talked about this before. One of the few states
that can actually go save, like justify their salary by saving 3 times what it costs.
Right, and I don't want to say save money, but it's actually recouping money money that's been spent.
Yeah. All right. 508-871-7000. Don in Worcester has an energy bill question. Don, you're on with Senator Moore.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
My question is that at a meeting the other night, I had heard that there's some type of legislation probably going to be filed that is going to do away with all of the natural gas services in Massachusetts based on what happened out there in Andover, places like that. It went down to say if somebody's grill in a restaurant needed to be replaced, it would have to be replaced by something else other than natural gas heat. So
okay.
I didn't know if that was something that has been tossed about with the legislation. That's something that's banging around the State House. Is there any truth to that you know?
Don, it may be at the State House. You remember there was 6,500 bills that were filed, and what we had this past week, we have what's called the Joint 10 rule, which means every bill has to be released from committee by the February 3rd. Now, some committees can request extensions, which some did do, but 90% of those bills just got released from committees. So I don't, unless you gave me a bill number, I have not been approached regarding that legislation, so I'm not aware of it. Now, if someone is going to file it, Don, obviously we can't read the future, but right now that has not been. You're the first person that's brought that up to me.
Don, are you saying that you heard that this says so? If you're, is this for commercial like restaurants or private homes, that you can't replace your range with the new gas range? It has to be electric or something else.
That's the way that it was presented to me. That natural gas services is going to probably just be a thing of the past.
Well, I know California, Governor Newsom is proposing the conversion to electric, all cooking, restaurants and everything, to do away with gas ranges. Okay. But that was a California thing. I
wouldn't be, Don, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a piece of legislation filed.
Doesn't mean it passes, though, right?
Right, doesn't mean it passes. And it does. If I had a bill number, we could go to tell you whether the committee, if the bill is actually a bill filed, we could tell you whether the committee released it favorably, not favorably, or sent it to study.
No, okay. It could be something that's just in the filing, but this was amongst workers, and it was kind of like the intent was to change all the natural gas to other forms of energy, but it was going to be all of these guys would be out of work, you know. And it was just one of those things that maybe just at a preliminary, maybe it's coming out of one of the cities and towns around Boston, the Cambridge area, where they do things a little different out there in eastern part of Massachusetts. So it's just something that I had heard about it. I hadn't heard about it yet. And, you know, again, when I was listening to the radio, and you were on coming on, I says, well, maybe you have a little knowledge on something like that.
I will.
So,
Well, Don, I will tell you this. That I did get an email, and this is actually not dealing with natural gas. I got invited by a House representative who sponsored a bill, and the title of it is "An Act Relative to the Electrification of New and Substantially Remodeled or Rehab Buildings." And with how this legislation has been described to me in this email, which would require all new construction and major renovations to use electricity instead of fossil fuels for space heating and cooling and cooking, clothing, drying, hot water. This would be implemented statewide and not a local option. And this legislation would actually limit the use of natural gas.
There's also an article in the Energy News Network, but it's from like 6 months ago or so, that says that the year after Massachusetts Attorney General struck down a suburban town's attempt to ban new fossil fuel infrastructure, a growing number of municipalities are pursuing new strategies to restrict the use of oil and natural gas in buildings. So in the past 8 months, the towns of Brookline, Arlington, Lexington, Concord, and Acton have all passed measures asking the state legislature to allow them to prohibit the installation of fossil fuel infrastructure into new construction in some cases.
So this bill, this might tie into that.
Yeah.
This is the description that the representative put in the email. We are facing a climate emergency. It is imperative that we eliminate the use of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. Natural gas, the most common fuel used for heating, is responsible for very significant greenhouse gas emissions. The emissions come from burning natural gas to heat our homes and cook our food, but also from leaks. Natural gas leaks from the old decrepit pipes under our streets and from our stoves when they were turned on. So natural gas prevents a danger. So the object of this legislation would be to make everything electric, to reduce the dependence on natural gas. But the only thing that we have to, one question I had that I need to talk to this legislator about is our electric power plants need natural gas.
Yeah, where do you think electricity comes from?
To help make the electricity.
Yeah.
Or coal.
So,
I think that's part of the problem too, is that, you know, they want to curtail it at my home. Say if my boiler went out of business and I needed a new one, I'd have to get an electric heated boiler, something like that, you know.
Yeah, and that's what this would require. This legislation, and again, the person's looking for co-sponsors, so that this might be those. They probably just filed this bill, or they're trying to get people to agree to co-sponsor it to try to get support to get it through. But right now, I had not heard of this legislation until last week.
Okay, so it's just one of those things that, you know, to get the electricity, you got to burn natural gas someplace.
Yes.
And if it's, you know,
or coal.
We're going to be cold or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Or no, I said or coal. I mean,
or coal. I understand that too.
Yeah.
But it's just that it was just hearing about it. It's probably in the preliminary stages, but it might mean that if they curtail the use of natural gas, that means all of the people out there that work for the gas companies, you know, they're out of jobs, something like that. So
yeah, it could impact that. And also, Don, what we got to worry about too is, you know, we've heard over the years of California with the rolling blackouts. So the power grid was not sufficient to handle all the demand. One concern I have, and this legislation could actually tie into this, is the fact that if everything's going electric, so the grid that we have, is that adequate? Is there enough capacity for that to handle the change we're going to be making to all these electrical uses? So we've got an issue there that we're going to need to enhance the power of the grid.
Yeah.
No, it's right. But maybe that small little town that you mentioned, was it Acton or something?
Yeah,
maybe there's enough maybe there's enough of electric line to power that city up and things like that. But
eventually,
you know,
as we move forward with when people start plugging their cars in at home, and if a bill like this goes through where everything's going to be electric, that's going to increase the impact on what's currently available in our grid. So there's going to have to be some additional resources to support or increase the infrastructure.
Well, they'll be running new power lines through the cities then instead of it goes into place. So that was just the senator. Thank you for the info. Now I have a little bit more to go with but
and actually,
I hope that,
actually, Don, if you want the bill number for this that I just read to you was House. It's HD 4755, and it's an act relative to the electrification of new and substantially remodeled or rehabbed buildings.
all righty. I'll get into it and read it up there later on sometime today.
All right,
Well, Senator, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Don, for the call. Appreciate it. This is Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. We're going to take a quick break. As a guy who just came from one condo to another and went from electric to a gas range, gas is much better to cook with. And I did see an interview with a restaurant owner because of the California proposition, and restaurant owners are livid because it's cooking with electric and cooking with gas night and day. Chefs don't want it. Anyway, take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side with State Senator Mike Moore for Politically Speaking here on AM 830 WCRN.
It's the spirit of America, the spirit of... On a biscuit, let's go.
Now it's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Levante's Auto School. With 5 locations, click Levante'sAutoSchool.com to find one near you. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. And this week, Teddy's on the Hill opens in the former Red Hat space. More on this, we invite into the conversation Mark Hurwitz from NECN in Dig, Boston. Hey, Mark.
How you doing, Joe?
Welcome to Out with Joe. So what is going on over there in the old West End and Red Hat, which is, I know, a place you used to hang out a bit, and I did too.
Yeah, well, we had a bit of a scare last June because the Red Hat closed after being in business since 1907. And immediately after it closed, we heard that a new owner, Jake Nicholson, was planning to breathe new life into the space. So he recently opened in late January, actually, Teddy's on the Hill, which basically it pays tribute to the Red Hat, but also has a refreshing, the menu is a little different, upgraded, and the space was renovated a bit, but they do definitely pay tribute to the old Red Hat.
Well, that was such a mainstay and a landmark for, like you said, I didn't even realize it goes back to 1907.
It's old.
The inside, they didn't do a complete redo. They just freshened it up a little bit, or did they really wipe it clean?
They did a pretty good renovation on it, but they kept it the same style basically as the old Red Hat, and the menu has a lot of the same items that you would see in the Red Hat. So, like nachos, burgers, wings, and of course, beer, wine, and cocktails. But one thing of interest is they're also serving South Shore style bar pizza, which is the only place in downtown Boston where you can get South Shore style bar pizza.
I think for some of our listeners, you have to explain exactly what South Shore style bar pizza is.
Well, it's an individual pizza. It's 9 or 10 inches in diameter. And it's a mix of mozzarella and cheddar cheese that extends all the way to the crust, and you can get it with burnt or laced edges, so it caramelizes along the edge. It's just a little like Greek pizza, but not really. It's fairly greasy. It's got like almost a shortbread crust, and they're small enough so that you order one and you can eat the whole thing with whatever you're drinking, your beer or whatever. But they're really good, and mostly on the South Shore only.
Well, it's great pub food, right? That kind of pizza is awesome. All right, and they're going to go after, again, the college students, the medical profession, the politicians. Who do you think? Who are they targeting?
Yeah, I think all the above. And back in the day, the Red Hat was actually catering to all the accountants. There's a lot of accountants who work in that area, but it's going to cater to business people, medical people. People at the State House will be going down there because it's right there. And yeah, definitely people from Suffolk University and maybe Emerson, which isn't too far away. So I'm guessing it'll be a nice mix of people there.
Awesome. And Mark, tell people where they can see your stuff and see your articles.
So I write food and travel articles for both NECN online and also also Dig Boston, both online and in print, and that's also food and travel. And also, I do work on the Hidden Boston site, which is restaurant reviews. But these days, not much in the way of reviews, so it's kind of on hold right now.
Yeah, we have the same problem here with Out with Joe, not hitting a lot of restaurants. Mark, thanks for stopping by Out with Joe. I appreciate the coverage here.
Thanks so much, Joe.
And thank you for joining us. And for more on this posting and this complete article from Mark, click outwithjoe.com. We've suspended the Music Minute for the time being. Please support your local musicians. We do. Follow us on social media platforms at Out with Joe. Out with Joe has been brought to you by Levante's Auto School with 5 locations, 1 near you. Hi, I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you probably recognize me from the radio, or at least my voice, maybe from this station you're listening to now. And if you don't know, over my 30-plus years on the air, I've been best known for the real estate, mortgage, and financial talk that I've done. And what you may not know is that I haven't just talked the talk, but I've walked the walk. You see, I've been a licensed real estate salesperson here in the Commonwealth since 1984. And my very first venture into talk radio in 1986 was actually a real estate talk show. So I just wanted to remind you, or maybe inform you, that if you're considering selling or purchasing a property, or looking to invest in income-producing property, consider having a conversation. You won't just be tapping the 3+ decades of my experience with marketing, purchasing, investing, and even being a landlord, but that of the countless experts and professionals that I've had the privilege of interviewing, working with, and learning from. Think of the vast network and contacts you'd have access to. So before making a move, make a call. You can click joerealtors.com, find me on Facebook at Joe Realtors, or email me at cameoproperty@gmail.com, or just call direct to my cell, 508-969-1088. That's 508-969-1088. And listen to Heidi Zizza and myself on Handling Change.
The spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America, the spirit of what's old and what's new. The spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America, the spirit of the red, white, and blue.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour, Politically Speaking. State Senator Mike Moore in studio, taking your questions and calls. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. By the way, the text line is also up and running. If you send a text, it appears on the screen in studio in real time at 617-297-8388. Or email textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen. All right, Senator, do we have anything that you're watching that you think people should know about? Are you sponsoring any bills, or you have anything particular you want to talk about?
Well, right now, what I'm, as far as legislation goes, what I filed a year ago, most of the bills, 90% of the bills have come out of committee, have been released. There is actually a couple of bills I have in the Public Safety Committee that they've given extensions. So I got to find out how long the extension is going to be, so that these bills can be addressed at some other point. Usually if there's an extension, they're looking at doing some further research on it. So I'm hoping that the further research will get these bills out of committee. Right now, it's really just reaching out to the cities and towns that I represent and trying to find out what their issues are in the budget above and beyond the Chapter 70 or the unrestricted government aid.
Got it.
So, and actually, I know you were talking crime earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we
did you make a bill to stop crime? That would be a good idea.
We had a shooting in Millbury at the theater. And
really?
Yeah. And
that doesn't happen a lot.
No, it doesn't.
You mean like at the what do they call the Blackstone?
Yeah, Blackstone,
really?
Yeah, right outside the movie theater.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 14. Yeah.
So someone was
they
shot.
Didn't like the movie, or what was the?
It's from my conversations with law enforcement. It appears that it was some gang-related activity. Some of the gangs came into Millbury from Worcester. So I actually had a meeting with the chief of police in all the surrounding towns. So I'm trying to work with them on getting them additional funding in the budget, whether it's
for what, like the police presence up there, or to go
just
after
in general,
the gangs?
to go after the gangs.
So this is Worcester gang activity moved to Millbury, because I'd be shocked if Millbury had a big gang problem.
Well, and that was the issue. It seems to be. I want to try to stop it before it proliferates outside of the city of Worcester.
So two different gangs showed up at the same theater, type of thing.
Apparently, from what we're seeing, is the person who went to the theater, put on Facebook, or did a post or something
here
that
we
he was there,
Mhm.
and apparently a rival gang did a drive-by, and the teenager lived. He was 17, so
He was actually shot.
He was actually shot in the shoulder.
Okay.
So my concern is, if this in fact is that we're starting to see a proliferation outside of the city, I wanted to make sure I'm working
Yeah.
with the chiefs. So I had a meeting with the chief of Worcester Police, all the surrounding towns from Shrewsbury, Grafton, Millbrook, trying to work on.
Because you got families and kids and teenagers who, mom and dad used to be okay with their teenagers going down to the movie theater.
Well, and this is really why I want to make sure that we stop
Yeah,
it before it
nip
goes
this in the bud.
before it expands out. Because right now, Worcester, the entire city of Worcester,
Mm.
the second largest city of Worcester, does not have a movie theater. So the only theater in the area.
Isn't stuff like that always bizarre to you, right? I mean, Worcester is the second largest city in New England, and things like that always amaze me.
Yeah,
and we don't have a movie theater in the actual city.
And then the theater in
Well,
Millbury.
wait a minute. What's the one up? Is the one up off of 190?
That's closed.
That was Showcase North, and
That's closed?
they've been closed for quite a while.
Yeah,
I'll tell you how often I go to the movies.
So that puts more pressure on the facility
Sure.
in Millbury.
Yeah.
And look, we want everyone to come in. I, as someone who represents the town and also lives
Oh,
there,
yeah.
I want everyone to come and enjoy the mall, but we want
be
to be
safe.
safety
Yeah.
about it. So I'm working with. So I worked. Had the meeting with all the chief of Worcester and some of the chiefs of the surrounding towns, and I'm going to be looking at ways to see if I can, whether it's technology, whether it's some other sort of resources for overtime with different things like that, trying to get some ideas from them on how we can try to stop.
So if this
before it
Jamal
continues.
hadn't posted that they're going to the movie,
he probably nothing probably
that
would
probably
happen.
would never happen. He would have gone to the movie. Nobody would have paid attention to him. Everything would have been fine. But they have to, put it out there. And where's Facebook on monitoring and crushing down on gang posts? Maybe that was where they should exercise some of their censorship.
So this is where hopefully, if we act early and get law enforcement the funds and supplies they need, or the equipment they need, that they can act quickly and we can stop this from spreading out.
Was the perpetrator, the shooter, apprehended?
Actually, I don't know if they've. I know I think they've ID'd him, but I don't know if they've actually arrested him yet.
Because the thing about that place, and that's when I was living in Worcester, that's where I would go to the movies, and that's there's a TGIF there, and there's a Target, and all this stuff down there. So you've got to, because they built it up on the top of that hill, right? So I mean, you got to like drive up one way up in there, and one way out.
One way in and out, unless there's an emergency.
And I've always said, and I've had this conversation, in the car with friends and people I'm going with, that, oh, this is actually because this isn't such a great place to rob somebody, because you're trapped. I mean, it's like holding a bank up on Nantucket. Where are you going to go? You got one state trooper, and what are you going to do? He's going to find you. You can't leave the island, right? So the same thing. You drive in there. If you did something, and there's police, or at least holidays, right? There's police every 20 feet.
I will tell you, since when I was on the board of selectmen and they opened in Millbury, the owners of the mall, the developers, the owners, were always very good to work with. If there was a law enforcement issue or public safety issue, they were the first to come and respond and give some resources. And which you see when you go through there on weekends or it's busy, you see there's police officers at every intersection. Every intersection.
Directing traffic, and
at times in the summertime, they used. I'll have to double check. They used to have foot patrols that would actually just walk around the front of the stores and inside.
Which I think is the best thing in policing. And my father used to say, he was a career police officer, and he would tell me all the time, the worst thing that happened to policing is when they took the beat cop away. When he went on Somerville, got out of the Marine Corps, he went on Somerville, was the first department, and you walked the beat. They actually had those boxes, that they would turn the key, and they walked in. And he said, the beat cop knew all of the proprietors, all the store owners. They also knew the kids in the neighborhood, right? They knew who the little troublemakers were, and they knew who the good kids were, and they knew who your father was.
And I think that's what's lost today in the debate with as far as police patrols and police coverage, because I am a big supporter of the community policing, and it's just that a lot of people who are talking about defunding police and some of these other crazy things. The community policing is just what you said. So the school this ties into school resource officers too. It's so they can build a relationship, a positive relationship with the community, and this way, if there's something going on, those relationships, someone you met, a business owner or a young teenager or someone may be able to provide information that allows you to stop some of this violence that's occurring.
And also, if you're the beat cop or the resource officer in the school or what have you, you learn who has problems, who's more likely to be a problem, and you probably catch it brewing before something happens, and more apt to say, or when it does happen, it cuts down the amount of time as where you're going to go investigate, check it out, right? And like you said, with these relationships, you're not starting from cold.
No, and I think every town in my district, I believe, has school resource officers. The only one who doesn't right now, and I think they may still have them, a new integration of the school police officer program, is the city of Worcester. They were pulling out, based on a recommendation from the school committee, they were pulling out.
That was more anti-cop, though. That was get the cops out of the school because they're all bad and they're killers. I mean, this anti-cop movement that we've had is the ripple effect that it has had in crime, right? I mean, that in conjunction with DAs in some of these places that are refusing to prosecute, and then the bail reform. Look what's happening with crime across it. And I'd hate to see Massachusetts follow down there. I didn't know about this shooting, but that's such an odd thing to hear, that a gang shooting in Millbury movie theater.
That's why, and I want to make sure it stays odd.
Yeah.
And look, and I'm also working with Worcester, so I can give them police department, so I can give them some more resources. So I'm not trying to just look at this to keep the gang activity stuck in the city.
Let's get gang activity down across the board.
Across the board. So I've spoken to the chief. He was at the meeting, so he's going to give us some recommendations on possibly equipment that they could use that we can try to give some sort of assistance to.
Now and I don't know if this has been cut, but I know that major police departments, part of their anti-gang and gang monitoring task force is monitoring social media, is actually watching the social media of known gang members and affiliates to find out, because this is how they do. They can't help themselves, right? We're not saying these are brilliant criminals who publicize and brag about, right? How many people have been busted because of social media? I mean, look at the COVID money situation, right? Billions of dollars have been fraudulently done, and they got a lot of these guys because they're posting their Lamborghini and all this cash, and they're hashtagging it COVID money, right? So they're watching these the social media, and that's how they solve a lot of this.
And they have I don't know what the correct word, if it's a platform or software. They have some communities have software that they can monitor the social media, and there's keywords that it picks up on.
Yep.
So this is where that artificial intelligence comes in. So if it picks up, and then it will notify,
red flag it, and send it to human eyes to take a look at.
Yeah. So we'll see what that's going on, and then so we had
anyone else? So was it the intended target who got hit, and no innocent bystanders?
No innocent bystanders. So that's where we.
So at least they were a good shot. I mean,
well,
and because that's the thing, right? These jamokes get out there, and it's gang on gang, and they do it. But what happens is the stray bullet goes through the wall and hits the 3-year-old baby in the crib.
But I will say this: it was a learning experience in the meeting, due to the fact that the gang unit, all the work that the Worcester gang unit has done and has been doing. They did identify several communities outside the city of Worcester where there are a lot of the gang members are actually living.
So Worcester is outsourcing their gangs. They're bringing them in, right? Bringing them in to do the gang violence that their own gang members won't do. So this is bad. Worcester is what do you call it? Worcester's called the what's that term then? Farm city or rural city, you go one town in every direction and you're in farmland basically, right? But there was a term, I forget the country city or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so basically, I mean, most other cities it takes miles and miles as it finally gets to rural areas. But Worcester is like, here's the city, and then you're in Bolton. You know what I'm saying? And then you're in, it doesn't take long to get to very non-dense.
I was just going to say, other than Millbury, Auburn, and Grafton, you're right. Leicester has a lot of farms, and some of the other communities surrounding on the northern side.
So it's not like it takes you, you come out of Boston, right? I mean, there's Boston and then Roxbury and Dorchester and Brookline, and you eventually, you're going to go ways out. So you got Worcester, which is like the country city, that you only have to go one town, or sometimes if you go west, the next town over, or one town away, and then you're in very, very rural area.
So the positive of this is the law enforcement, police, and all the communities are working together. They're going to be sharing information. So
It'd have to be regional.
Yeah. So hopefully we can stop that in the bud. And then another issue that I'm working on has to do with child eye care. I was actually on a commission that looked at right now what we have when a child goes to school, they're supposed to have an eye exam. And then after the eye exam, obviously, if they have an issue with reading,
right,
they need to follow up with an eye doctor and get glasses. Well, I guess there's been, there has been a lack of follow through that a lot
so they get the exam.
They get the exam.
But that's it.
That's it.
So they could have a condition, either they don't see as well, which is going to certainly affect their learning because they're not reading the material. And what's the other thing when you mix up the letters? Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. Yeah. So this really had to do with the fact that there's a gap between the test and then the follow through to make sure that that they get the glasses. So
this is going to be something that makes sure that, okay, once you've had the test, if you have 20/20 vision, you see everything great, go back to class. Anything else, next step, refer it to another thing. Hey, folks, this is Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore, who joins us on the first Saturday of every month. 508-871-7000 for questions if you'd like to talk to the senator. Let's go to Jim in Worcester. There's a question about COVID money. Jim, you're on with State Senator Mike Moore.
Good morning, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Jim. How are you? Yes.
Good. Two questions. One's nationally. What did you think of Mr. Pence's statement about January 6th?
That he had no authority to not.
Yeah.
Well, from my understanding, I give him credit for coming forward and explaining that, so people aren't mistaken as far as what his authority or role was.
Right. My second issue is when Mr. President Biden handed that $1.9 trillion relief package to bail out everybody from hospitals for the COVID-19. Hospitals, EMT, everybody.
Yep.
Is to help finance all this medical attention. A lot of the money still is sitting in state coffers, like $3-4 billion. And I heard that some of the states are putting it toward their budget. And if that's the case, why can't Massachusetts? I heard they couldn't put it toward their budget.
Yeah, no, Massachusetts. We're doing. So just to let you know, up until January 1st, in November, we did our first federal COVID bill. And in that bill, we had $5 billion of federal money. We used 2.5, and we're going, and we authorized the distribution of that for COVID-related expenses, but they've got to be one-time expenses. These are not expenses that are going to be that we want to see in the state budget recurring every year. Now this year we're going to do another 2.5. The other 2.5 out of that $5 billion, we'll do another COVID-related bill and hopefully disperse that out. And this is where I will say that we've been contacted. I know I've been contacted by COVID related type of businesses or agencies that could use some help but didn't get any in the first round. So hopefully we'll be able to supply some funding to those different operations that may have been overlooked or they didn't reach out to us for some resources. So hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th, we'll have the next 2.5 voted on and distributed. What we haven't touched yet also is the $12 billion that came as part of the infrastructure bill that they passed federally. So we're going to have an opportunity to reinvest that money into the infrastructure that is authorized in the bill. So so yes, you are right. We got federal money. There's a lot. We still have half of it coming just out of the COVID. We still have half of it that we'll work with the administration on dedicating it sometime this year. Then we'll have the other $12 billion that is strictly infrastructure related.
And could that be put toward our budget to lower our taxes, or does it have to go to a specific?
No, it's got to go specific. The only thing it could be used for, because it's COVID related, is, I don't know if you've been following the Department of Unemployment Insurance. There was a lot of overpayments that were made, and the trust fund is actually in the red. It's going to be into the red. So we could use what we did in the first opera bill, that $2.5 billion. We took $500 million and we put it in there so that the businesses don't have to try to limit the increase on their unemployment tax fund.
Right. Well, that's good, because I just don't want to see like what happened in Texas last year, where Mr. Biden sent them billions of dollars because they had that big freeze down there. And it seems like they're doing it all over again because they don't want to go up on their rates. We keep on sending these states money to bail them out because of their stupidity. But I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Oh, you're welcome.
Joe, thank you very much.
No problem, Jim. All right, folks, this is Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore, and you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000 or text us at 617-297-8388. All right. There was something on there about Better Bridges funding.
Yes, that is some of the money that we have from the federal infrastructure.
So we've got close to 1,200 miles of highway in poor condition.
Yes, and we've got 400.
Drive around Massachusetts. I don't think anyone's going to question that. And might even say only 1,200.
And we also have, and there's 472 bridges that have been classified by the Department of Transportation as being in poor condition.
Okay.
Some of the funding that goes along with that is we have another 22.8%. Well, this talks about vehicles. 22.8% transit vehicles in the state passed for their useful life.
I say that again. Or what?
They're past their useful life.
Oh,
so we need to replacing some of the transit vehicles.
Are these the T trains or the commuter rails, or are you talking about actual vehicles that the state have?
Public transportation.
Okay, public. Oh, so buses.
And those types of things. And then we have, let's see, under the infrastructure plan, we also have $63 million to spend over 5 years to support the expansion of an electric vehicle charging network throughout the state. Then we also have that.
Now, who pays for those chargings? Are these things you go up and you got to, is the taxpayers paying for that electricity, the store owners, or do you have to put like a credit card in to charge your car? How does, is that magic electricity that just appears?
Joe, you know something? I have never used one. So
Yeah.
I can't, that's a good
I know
good
the
question.
Tesla ones are free, right? If you have a Tesla and you see a Tesla thing, that's part of when you buy the car.
And I know over off of Grafton Street in Worcester, the mall there, they just put a whole row of charging stations in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's one.
I don't know if there's a way right now. I don't know if I'm sure they got the technology, but maybe they haven't implemented right now.
All right, so I'm waiting for that very that homeless person that's very with a great imagination and some engineering, who's going to just realize that you know what, I'm going to take my little tent and everything, and they make an adapter, go up to one of these charging Tesla stations, plug into the Tesla station, and they've got heat, electricity, and TV every night. Right? It's got to happen. You got to think that's basically free electricity hanging out there, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Could that happen? Or when you plug it into your Tesla, I'm thinking maybe, does somebody have a Tesla who can explain this to us? 508-871-7000. And I have friends with Teslas. I just never asked this. I'm going to have to call them. Because when you pull up to a Tesla charging, does it recognize your car? Like when you plug it in, does your car talk to the charger? And Tesla knows, oh, this is Mike Moore bought the Tesla. This is his Tesla. We know it is. And he bought the car when we're going to turn on the charger and charge the car.
I'm sure there's got to be
Some ID to it, right? I mean, the technology's there, right?
Well, I'm just saying the technology, they've got to have the technology. I think if they are not charging right now for the electricity, I think down the road as the infrastructure goes, you'll see more fees associated with it.
But one of the one couple that I know that has a Tesla, when they bought it, they live in a condo co-op situation, right? And so they have a garage, everybody in the and it's not a condo, it is some kind of community thing, I think a co-op or something. But they said, okay, we will pay to put another box in, and everybody shares the electric bill except the Tesla car has its own meter. So they pay that bill separately because they didn't expect everybody else to pick up their Tesla bill, right on that. So that's it. Plus, you can plug these into regular outlets. It just takes a zillion hours to charge it that way, but you can do that if need be.
So quickly in that,
because we're running out. So give us your last.
So quickly, there's also $244 million of infrastructure for the development of airports over 5 years. So there's investment there, and $10 billion for rail improvement and safety grants, and $5.5 billion to upgrade crossing, makes safety improvements on crossing railroad crossings.
I've said this a million times. I'm a rail guy. I love trains. I wish that GM didn't put the trains out of business because they wanted to sell buses. I wish that commuter, was better. I wish we had trains like they do in Japan. I just wish we traveled by train more. All right, that's it. Where they can find your office online?
Michael.moore@masenate.gov.
All right, folks, that's wraps up this month's edition of Politically Speaking on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Mike Moore at 7. And then, of course, Peter Blue, 9 o'clock takes us to 12 noon. That's your Sunday morning block on WCRN. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks.